Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, our Diamond Anniversary, episode 75.
Diamond Jubilee.
A Diamond Jubilee. God, we're right up there with Queen Elizabeth now. Was it her diamond? It was her Diamond Jubilee, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Change our thumbnail art.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it. What you gonna do? Hi, I'm Tristan Jutra.
Hi, I'm Tasia Custodi.
Hi, I'm Gray Williams.
Yo, I'm William Silver.
Oh, one of these kids is doing his own thing.
Remember that app,
And
Yo?
you can find out
Oh,
more.
yo.
Oh, yeah.
I used to bug a friend of the show, Tim, all the time. I used to just yo him all the time.
Yo is the best social app ever. Very simple. You can find out more about us at momentous.tv, twitter.com/momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous.tv, instagram.com/momentous.tv, and on YouTube. Search my name and find the Momentous playlists there. So, got a little bit of follow-up for us here. In the last year or so, maybe, I don't know, what is time? We've been talking about a number of generative artistic technologies such as DALL-E, DALL-E 2, DALL-E Mini, which is now known as Crayon, with an eye in the middle of it. All sorts of tools to, help spark our imaginations, even create placeholders for potential artwork or even presentations or whatnot, or straight up, turn them into NFTs, whatever we want to do. And some of these projects have had certain restrictions put on them to help discourage the production of deep fakes. So they have restricted things like creating images of public figures. Some of them even prevent the creation of anything resembling a human being whatsoever. And we can see that by the nightmare fuel sort of results that some of them have produced, where they seem to have a bad time with people's faces. Well, the latest contender in this space is known as, where is it now? Stability AI. And they have a system called Stable Diffusion, which they have released to just over 1,000 researchers. So this is not available to the public yet, though you can apply if you have certain research credentials, and you can provide a link to your GitHub, et cetera, et cetera. You can generate 512 by 512 pixel images using text prompts, much like many of the other systems we've been talking about, with results that are somewhat comparable that we've seen with some of these other platforms. But again, the difference with this is where we start getting into the creation of human images, and particularly those of public figures. So the very photorealistic image of Barack Obama has been created, and a number of celebrities, and some real, some from mythical, some from the past, some from the future. And we've got Boris Johnson doing things like some of the prompts here. Boris Johnson wielding various weapons.
Pretty sure he's not human.
I don't know. One of them wielding with that weapon looks like he's got like one of them yard-long hot dogs from Vancouver Canadians baseball game. Another one looks like an extended straight razor. Another one a tiny oar. All sorts of strange things. But you can see in the faces, such as they are, like a lot better than some of the other projects that do human faces, and now particularly public figures. So let's start with Tasia, you on this. How do you feel about a system like this, where they've removed some of the restrictions, kind of damming the torpedoes and saying, hey, make whatever you want, and if there's risk of deep fakes happening from it, in this very early stage for this particular project, it is what it is. This is like the free market of AI generated images. What are your thoughts on this? Is this fine? Is it dangerous? How do you feel?
It's dangerous and irresponsible, and it scares me because it's really like, at the end of the day, do you even have like autonomy over your own self or image? Because if somebody can just create a deep fake of that, not to mention the whole purpose of like deep fakes and like misinformation and all that kind of stuff anyway, but like, it's just really freaky to me that people can do this and then, make an image of you holding whatever you want. or beating on a child or like whatever the thing is, and then can create, the wrong people could create a whole campaign around that. They could create images that are like fake news images, of war or whatever. So it's just weird. I don't like it.
There
Don't we
are
have rules? Can't
there
we
are a
have
number of
rules?
well, and there are a number of restrictions that they have, banning certain types of sexual material and certain violent imagery, things like personally identifying information like social security numbers, social insurance numbers, and the like. But other than that, we can have the what's this, the boy with the gold earring, vaguely looking like Mark Zuckerberg here. And it's still having trouble with certain things like these. The one of the prompts it was given was a very sexy woman with black hair, pale skin, in bikini, wet hair, sitting on the beach. And it seems to think that women in some cases have like 3 legs, for example. Maybe that makes a very sexy woman in an alternate universe. Sometimes they only have 1 leg. Maybe it's a mer lady. So they're still working on some of the details there. Will, what do you think about this? Do you share Tasia's concerns, or are you more like, we'll let her rip?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some cause for being careful about not unleashing the Kraken. I mean, I've been playing around, especially with Midjourney, a bit. I think I mentioned before the show, and I mean, it does not do people very well. It mixed results. I'm actually using an image that I generated, or a friend of mine generated from Midjourney, for a looper graphic, and I've had to alter it tremendously. I mean, basically, it's this figure in like a sort of cyberpunk background, and like basically like his hands are just like shredded meat, like it's just big globs of shredded meat. And so I had to take out the arms, I had to redo the torso. The legs are fine, the feet look like shredded meat. It's just, to be fair,
it's pulled pork. You put that in the description, right?
Yeah
With pulled pork hands.
Pulled pork hands. So I mean, like, it gets there. It does the city very well. It's got a very, I mean, I'll show you guys the before and after when I release the looper. But if you're interested, I bring the 2 images on the show. But what I did to tweak it and what it spat out, I would not use what was spat out directly out of Midjourney because it just wasn't 100%. But as we talked about, it was a good starting place. It generated some ideas. I have some Photoshop and art skills. And I was like, hey, I like the background, but the shredded meat hands have to go. So, that's where we're at with the technology. I mean, those ones look pretty good in terms of realistic people. But again, the ones that are generally like the DALL-E that's available to the public and stuff are not as powerful as some of the ones that people are using
for research,
like for free.
Okay.
So that the one that we were just looking at, like, that's pretty impressive. Like the Barack Obama and some of the other images. But yeah, a lot of the things that get spat out of Midjourney are not that great. I don't know if you guys watched John Oliver. John Oliver had a whole thing on Midjourney this weekend, and some guy who was high as a kite put in like hundreds of prompts about John Oliver, and some of them very specific. And there's a whole series on John Oliver and a cabbage. So if you're at all interested in any of these AI programs, it is funny to see what people put in. So I highly recommend checking out John Oliver this week, or past week. But so I'm kind of going on about this, but they're cool, but I think we're a long way from them being perfect.
Final word goes to you, Gray. I know in the past we've discussed using tools like this to help seed various types of art projects, not necessarily replacing artists. And there's all sorts of purposes for this. What do you think about this wide open? I mean, relatively wide open compared to some of the other projects that we're talking about here. Where do you land on the concern scale?
I'm mostly concerned for the company because this opens them up to the idea of liability. If a deepfake is created, if it does cause damage to someone's reputation, they could be in a lot of legal trouble. So, I mean, right now, currently, I think these images are limited to 512
Pretty low
pixels
res, yeah.
square. So, not so much of an issue. I think one of the things that probably they will implement will be some sort of marking system so that we know that it's a generated image and not a real image. That would probably shield them from some liability. Other than that, it's fascinating right now because we're kind of going to two very interesting destinations here. One, we're teaching machines about what we see and how we identify it and what aesthetics mean to us, which as we're trying to get machines to eventually get to the point where they have empathy so they don't kill us all, I think is a valuable thing. The other thing as well, though, is I think we're actually starting to train people that what you see on the internet probably, if it hasn't come from a verified source, probably is not real. And so, actually going and making sure that the things that you are seeing are real. I think we're certainly farther along than we were in 2015. So this is, part of what I like to think is an upward trend.
In a related ish sort of story, there is the danger of or a recent threat of these deepfake video calls coming through, whereby people are donning the faces of other people and then trying to, scam people and the like. And there's just a quick tip that we're going to include because we've been subjected to phone scams and email scam, phishing scams, and the like for a long time now. And there is this whole deepfake video call thing, which is so new to me, but there is a quick and dirty tip that you can use if you ever receive a video call from someone who's like, and especially if they're asking for help or money or something like that, and if some of you may have seen, I think it's last year, and I think we even talked about it on the show, hence the follow-up nature of this story. There is the one organization called Metaphysic.ai who worked with this fellow who's a bit of a Tom Cruise lookalike, and they use deepfake technology to make him look even more like Tom Cruise, and with remarkable results because he was a pretty good impersonator as well. So the one trick you can use if you're suspicious about a call, and maybe start doing this with your regular friends nowadays when you're on video calls with them, to say, before we get any further in this intimate conversation, can I please ask you to turn your head to one side?
This is known as the Zoolander maneuver.
Are you an ambi-turner?
Right. I can't turn left.
If they turn to one side and things look all kinds of wrong, could very well be a deep fake. And some of the examples they showed with a given model: Sylvester Stallone, Ryan Reynolds, Nicolas Cage, Keanu Reeves, Elon Musk, Jim Carrey, Vin Diesel, Tom Cruise, and Alexandra Daddario. They look amazing dead on. And in these calls, with this real-time deepfake technology, a lot of people could be fooled that they're speaking to the actual person. But get them to turn aside, and then it just gets all blurry because there's just not enough data points at the side of the head there to accurately map the target face's face onto your model's face. So just a little pro tip for any of you out there. And quick to the group. Have any of you ever received any sort of email, call, or video call from someone claiming to be someone there, a loved one of yours, and asking for help? Because I've got a couple just in the last few weeks.
Really?
Some people, not myself personally, but people I know. Anyone here?
Really? No.
Not anyone that I know, but I have been getting a lot of like, is this so-and-so's number? No, it's not.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hey, well, I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's like,
those are really ramped up.
I got one today saying, hey, Emma, it's Olivia.
They were looking for Olivia on my number too. Crazy. So funny.
And they're just trying to get you into conversations, and next thing you know, you've bought them $500 in iTunes gift cards to help put their kid through college.
Joke's on them. I can't converse to save my life.
So just in one friend of a friend, or the parents of a friend actually, received a call from what they thought was their grandson, saying that he was in an accident, and there was a woman that had been injured. A pregnant woman was injured in the accident, so like raising all sorts of alarms and urgency and danger. And then very quickly off the phone, some other person took over and said, like, I don't know if they claimed to be from like the police or something like that, saying, yeah, he's in big trouble, blah blah blah. If you got to post bail, et cetera, et cetera. And luckily, the folks who received the phone calls like, wait a second, this smells like a rat, because they had been educated by some other family members about this potential sort of danger. But this brings it up another. It's one thing, if you only have a few seconds of on the phone, and when someone's in distress, maybe it can kind of sound like someone but when you're talking to someone in a video call and you see their face, I mean, you've got to be a pretty high value target for someone to go through all this effort. But, as these technologies get cheaper and cheaper, it could happen to you, right? So, yeah, just get them to turn sideways. Who said that we didn't have valuable tips here on Momentous?
Right.
All right. Moving right along. A little bit of gadget news for us. A few weeks ago, we talked about... What's that big one? Is it the Steam Deck, right? That's that monster handheld game console. Well, now we've got something called the Neo Air Lite, which there was an Indiegogo campaign for, and it is a full-on Windows gaming PC handheld, and it's when volume-wise, I think it's about half the size of the Steam Deck. So it's a little less expensive, decent specs, and a bit more accessible, and especially for those with smaller hands. Will, having been a gaming enthusiast for years and years, in some of which included mobile gaming, how do you? If someone said, okay, you can have this or you can have the Steam Deck for your life and practicality and mobility and all that, which way would you lean on this?
It's really a tough one. I mean, I like the idea of this. I think one of the problems I always have with mobile gaming is that it's not just about putting thousands of super powerful games in your hand. It's about games that are crafted for the mobile experience or the portable experience. That's one way where iOS games are well suited. Even a lot of Nintendo games in the past, and Switch or DS games have been mobile first, or at least had a strong mobile focus. So, I mean, the idea of just putting a PC in your hand, it's hardware's cool, but show me the games is where I'm always coming from, because really games are what win systems, and what games are available that utilize the platform the best.
Gray, how about you?
Honestly, an awesome little system. I don't really have a need for one right now. I know they're having some difficulty getting Destiny 2 to work properly with the Steam Deck. My friend
what
Jeff
about
Griffiths
Crisis?
actually doesn't run Crisis. My friend Jeff Griffiths actually just got one, and I had a chance to get my hands on it, the Steam Deck that is, and
yes,
awesome. It's great.
Yeah.
And so this idea here of having PC gaming that is untethered, and just delightfully portable, I think is wonderful. It also does really kind of level the playing field a little bit with consoles. Being able to have this type of experience, and this looks like a phenomenal piece of hardware, and the price is great. So, not on my buying list, but I imagine if you've got a gamer in the family who is looking to get a little bit more portable and likes their indie games, this thing's great. If they like mainstream games, obviously great as well, but just that play time when you get into the heavier hitters, just it kind of shrinks down pretty quick. So, yeah.
Tasia, what would it take to compel you to add a dedicated gaming device to your arsenal of gadgets?
A lot of money.
We can raise the price, and then you can pay a lot of money. How about that?
No, I just, after I stare at a screen all day, like editing and stuff, I don't want to. It's bad enough with my phone, so I don't need something else to stare at.
Fair enough. Well, we won't put you on the spot more than necessary on this, except for what's your favorite game on your phone when you do you decide to like kill a little time when you're waiting at the airport or what have you. Are there any casual games that you enjoy?
I have Bubble Shooter on my phone for when I'm stuck in an airplane and like have no Wi-Fi or I finished all the shows I downloaded. That's it. I'm really not. I'm just
You
not into games.
Yeah, you raise a really good point, and things you can do when you don't have Wi-Fi or some other kind of data connection. I ran out of data recently because we were doing a lot of traveling, and it was like shutting off cellular data on so many things. It's like, what can I do? I don't want to like just go around and use extra data and pay for it. It's like, oh, okay, we'll play a game. Mini Metro is one of my go-tos on iOS. So speaking of gaming, why game on a handheld device when you could game on your John Deere tractor? So at DEF CON, which is a regular hackers convention, some brainiacs managed to do just that. Now I'm going to throw to you, Gray, on this issue, because this is all kind of tied up with jailbreaking, right to repair, all this sort of stuff. And this is just kind of an example of what you can do once you've jailbroken hardware that has, the software that on hardware that has kind of been crafted to keep the owners of said tractors from doing too much to do repairs on their own devices. This has been a source of contention in the right to repair movement. Can you give us like the high level of this issue and what is this Doom demonstration actually proving to us?
For sure. So this basically follows the same philosophy that McDonald's has with their ice cream machines. Essentially, you buy this machine and it comes with a service contract. And John Deere has had this idea that farmers for time immemorial have been able to repair their tractors, and so they see that as counterintuitive to their world domination plans. Basically, the idea here is they're locking people out of the ability to repair these devices, and this is actually where your cell phone and a tractor have something in common, which is if you own a cell phone and want to repair it, you now have more rights than you used to because of things like this happening. Apple has famously started to release parts to end users. They have to be serial matched to your phone, but you can buy the bits to your phone if you have to repair it, and you can repair it yourself. A lot of it's very time and labor intensive, but you can. So for anyone out there that owns a John Deere tractor and you're wanting to repair your device, hackers have come along and helped do this with a jailbreak that essentially has unlocked the system on the John Deere display, which does a couple of things. Basically, it gives users access to be able to get rid of a lot of these protections, so you can get into the system and actually perhaps replace it with a non-John Deere authorized part, which if you're out of warranty, probably doesn't matter that much anyway. John Deere will tell you, up and down, well, we can only guarantee the quality of our parts. Yeah, but you're going to charge me half the price of the tractor for that thing anyway, so why don't I just try this over here from this reliable dealer? So anytime we see Doom running on something, it means that essentially
hackers have had their way.
Yes, they've gone in and they've gone full John Romero on this system and made it into the open and friendly system that it should be. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Exactly right. Tasia, thoughts on right to repair in general? Like, are these activists, getting a little ahead of their skis? I mean, do you feel that they could actually end up doing more harm than good? Especially, there's things like Gray mentioned, the whole warranty issue. If you do stuff like this under warranty, should a company have a right to deny you warranty service because you've been tinkering a little too much? Then we get into the whole issue of being able to doing certain repairs without violating the warranty, whether it's on your smartphone, your laptop, or your tractor. Do these folks have a point, or are these corporations kind of do you think they're well within their rights to try to protect their consumers? Because there have been cases in the past, say you're using like non OEM batteries on something, and they could be cheap knockoffs, and then you could end up with a fire, and you don't want that reflecting bad on the company, and so on and so forth. So where do you land on this issue?
The companies are well within their right, even just from a business perspective, because I cannot imagine saying, "Oh, I'll honor warranty on something that you screwed around with." And you added whatever software or hardware or whatever it is that then like I have to fix on my dime.
Oh, agreed.
So, you know what I mean? Like there's just no, to me, it's not really that gray of an area. I guess they could say, because even if you're talking about parts, it gets confusing because it's like you could still put a proper part in incorrectly. And whose fault is that? It's yours. It's not the company's fault. Like they didn't give you the defective product. So I think they're well within their rights.
I know this may not be 100% the same thing. My car, it's a BMW, and my father-in-law helped me fix the back window. Now, because we don't have the computer to hook into my BMW system, I get an alert every time I turn on my car that something has been violated in the rear window. So, yeah, and I just live with it. I'm like, ignore, because, you know, he was sort of like, yeah, I can fix your car because he can fix cars. But he couldn't turn off the BMW, like, you're not an authorized dealer, even though it's just like, was like a cable in the back window, and he just opened up the panel and put a new one in.
So, very quickly, round robin. One of the things in this story is that they had modified the version of Doom. Instead of having a guy and you see his hands and gun, it's basically riding a tractor around. What kind of mod would you want to see in Doom? What would you kind of weapon or vehicle do you want to see in Doom, especially if it's tied in to some kind of hardware? We've seen like there's driving games you can install, download and install on Teslas, for example, and you get to drive a little Tesla around. And Tasia being our, momentous gaming correspondent extraordinaire, what kind of weapon do you want, or what do you want to drive around to mow people down with?
I don't like weapony things, so what I'm gonna say is I want like a vortex shield that I can just like bubble around me and like travel freely, but not be injured / not injure anyone else unless they come in my way.
Fair enough. The budget version of that could be bubble wrap.
That's doable.
No, like it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be really cool. Okay. It's gonna cost a lot of money.
I'm into it.
But it's serene. Maybe it's also like soundproof. It's like a nice little, I can just listen to Taylor Swift in there and like relax.
Oh no, there's copyright issues.
The craziness
no
that's going on around me.
So you're crossing
each other,
the
and
app
I'm just
Calm with Doom.
Oh, Doom Calm.
Yes.
Doom Calm.
Exactly.
Gray, how about you real quick?
I'd like to see Bernie Sanders as the hero, and with a bill that he's trying to get through Congress.
Okay.
I think that as the weapon would be just a very
But is he in his winter coat and scarf and gloves sitting on a chair
I love that.
outside with his bill?
These would be upgrades that you would find throughout the game.
Oh.
So,
Or in-app purchases if you want to like shortcut the system.
that's very on Bernie.
Oh, fair. True. Yeah, that tracks. Will, what about you?
You kind of put me on the spot. The best thing I can think of is I've always loved to drive around in the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo.
Nice.
So that's a big sort of I guess bucket item.
Yeah. You and those meddling kids.
Yeah, me and those meddling kids. I was a big fan of Scooby-Doo as a kid. And yeah, I don't know in terms of weapons. I can't really think of one off the top of my head, but there's all those great like heat-seeking missiles that go all over the place, magnetic missiles and stuff like that. I love all that kind of stuff in fantasy first-person shooter games.
May not be totally original, but compared to what they were doing for with the John Deere tractor situation here, but one of my favorite games on the Commodore 64 growing up is a game where you actually mowed lawns. I did a lot of lawn mowing as a child, so why wouldn't I want to do it on a computer as well? So there could be a Doom mod where you maybe push a lawnmower around and you're killing two I was going to say, killing two what's with one stone. What are the enemies in Doom actually called? But you're mowing the grass, and yeah. So
Killing two monsters.
It could be a ride-on more. That could be the extra upgrade there. So we'll have to get the DEF CON geeks, the hackers there, to work on all our mods. But speaking of DEF, we've got some good news here. Supposedly, and I'll say what supposedly in a moment. We got some new glasses for the deaf and hard of hearing that display subtitles when people speak. Now, this is similar to some of the tech we've been looking at from Google and others over the last year or so here on Momentous Live, where you will have real-time translation. We, in some cases, with Google Translate, we saw a demo from Google earlier this year with a woman and her mother being able to speak more easily from English to Mandarin and back again. But this is just straight up whatever, a single language, but being able to transcribe into subtitles on the inside of the glasses. And there's a British startup called XRAI Glass, which has developed these glasses, which are at this point, big and sort of bulky. I tried to find a working video or a video where it shows these glasses actually working, and could only really find sort of a promo video and a reaction video, which were kind of interesting and dramatic here. But all these news articles I found, it's a really compelling story, and we're all and Momentous here. We love stories that of companies that seem to be, solving a problem, making money, but solving real world problems, especially for people who have maybe been underserved in the past. But all the news stories I could find were all just kind of seem to be citing this one press release from the company itself. So TBD on how real this is, how far along in development this is, how close to being in the actual market. But Gray, you've had some experience with the deaf and hard of hearing community here, and I know that there's some philosophical issues regarding technologies like this, because for some, they consider their native language to be ASL, and to have things translated from English to English subtitles is maybe not what they're really looking for. But on the other hand, it does kind of open things up a bit, especially for those who aren't able to sign. Now, this is a UK company, so instead of ASL, it's BSL, their British Sign Language. What's your take on that from your experience with this community?
Looking at this is, I think, for folks who perhaps don't have an interpreter available for them at a given time. It's the writing was kind of on the wall with technology like this. Google actually showed this, years ago. And we've started to see, generated subtitles show up in just about everything. So this is not, a deaf person who is looking to have themselves be understood. Here, they're looking to understand other people. So I don't know that necessarily takes away from ASL or BSL. I'm sure, there are going to be people in that community who are just going to be up in arms about it. But looking at this recently, this actually isn't just for the deaf and hard of hearing. I don't know if you've had any trouble in the last 2 years when somebody's had a mask before their mouth and they can't understand. And I didn't realize how much I rely not just on expression, but also lip movements and being able to catch those nuances. If this thing can do that, I would buy a set right away, because I have spent so many uncomfortable moments in the last 2 years saying, one more time, again,
yes,
third time's a charm. Guess it wasn't. One more time? It's just, super awkward. So, realistically speaking, deaf culture is going to continue, because we're going to continue to have deaf people around unless there is some sort of worldwide plot to get cochlear implants or genetic changes. So I don't see this as a threat to deaf culture. But I do see it as a tool that the deaf and hard of hearing can use to make their lives better. The only folks who might have a bit of trouble with it would be your interpreters, who I think have seen the writing on the wall for quite some time.
Now, it looks like, according to their website, that this device is for sale. And a note, it's only available currently for Android phones. And they have a full compatibility list for various countries and where you can buy the devices. I'm looking forward to seeing some more real-world reviews from YouTubers and the like. Tasia, if you... Gray mentioned that this isn't just for the deaf and hard of hearing. How streamlined a device would you need to want to wear some kind of augmented reality glasses like this, in day to day, to even do things like help us understand people that are wearing masks, or some of the translation features that we saw from Google previously. It doesn't need to be straight up be like a regular pair of glasses. Are you willing to tolerate a little bit of bulk, like in the case of these ones?
I think they have to look like cool sunglasses. Or something that you want to wear, which, like, how many years ago now were like Google glasses? Like, I can't even remember now.
Like 11,
it's
I think.
So long ago. And the world was just not ready for it. And everyone thought, well, and now it's like, yeah, duh. But I think a bigger issue than that is, like, there are some other implications when even when we talk about like any wearable technology and the distracted driving or walking or whatever. So I think a lot of this has really good use cases, and I like the idea of these things, but then I think about actual real world implications and distractions. And like, also I wish we could find an example, because I would like to know how far out the text is projected, because a lot of people have issues where you can't see close, you're farsighted or whatever. So like, or you know what I mean? Like, there's other issues that, if you're scanning text or reading text on the screen, like, it would just be really interesting to see like what that projection looks like.
Gotcha.
You know
How
what
about,
I mean?
yeah. And it's one of those things where there's certain tech type people who maybe are willing to, wear something that looks a little more geeky, but if you want things to penetrate the mainstream, it's got to look like a regular pair of glasses. And I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for Apple to do something here, right? I mean, that's the old thing. Apple waits and sees, develops a lot of stuff, doesn't talk about it for years and years and years, and then boom, they've got something. Of course, Facebook had their Ray-Ban Stories glasses, which are limited in functionality. They've got built-in cameras. They're not doing any heads-up displays or anything like that, as far as I know. So there's kind of these different interpretations of these sorts of devices, and it remains to be seen what the killer app is going to be, but this is definitely something that is promising for sure. Will, what kind of feature would you like to see in some kind of an augmented reality glasses? These sort of translations, like if you're traveling, or if you're hard of hearing, because they with the one thing about accessibility is that it doesn't really hurt anybody and it helps everyone. And sometimes we have temporary issues where we need a little bit of help. Are there any sort of other features like navigation? You want to be able to read movie reviews when you're driving around, like watch videos, like have your own whole little world that only you can see while you're wearing your Joe Cool glasses. What are you looking for in a pair of AR glasses?
Sure, all of that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I like the idea of a HUD.
Heads up display.
Yeah. So like with the time or where I'm going, or like a small square where it shows me like a map, like how to get to my location or something like that. That's like voice activated. Show me how to get to the nearest McDonald's. That kind of thing. I guess watching TV and stuff, but I mean, to be honest, I like the idea of just a heads-up display, like telling me current stats, or if I got an email or something like that, so I don't have to look at another device as I'm walking. I'm like, okay, I got an email, that kind of thing. I nothing too crazy.
Carrot Weather can like have a little display. Hey, dum-dum, it's about to rain. I bet you forgot your umbrella again.
Yeah.
If you like sassy weather apps, try Carrot Weather. I'm sure they would have something for any AR glasses coming from Apple or Google or what have you. Now, moving on to an organization who has aspirations not only in augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverse, and whatnot, something a little bit more pedestrian from Meta comes the ability to easily cross-post reels from Instagram to Facebook. So to refresh people, Instagram Reels were Instagram's response to TikTok, which people love that snackable content, as we've been calling it for the last decade. And TikTok is the epitome of snackable content, where the algorithm can deliver up stuff to you that it thinks you're going to like. And TikTok's now crossed 1 billion users. Now, Tasia, being someone who is pretty active on social media for yourself personally, but also for your various aspects of your business, and a user of Instagram and Facebook, among other platforms, when you see news like this, is this something? Do you prefer to do you want to be able to easily share from one platform to another, or do you like to natively post on each platform? And what do you think of this whole trend to have everything be more like TikTok?
I think it depends on the platform in terms of like how I share the content. This makes sense because obviously Meta owns Instagram and Facebook. So it makes sense to make it easy to just do that for people, like share their reels to Facebook. I think that Facebook is struggling. And so this is just like another way for them to try to capitalize on the short form vertical video content, because like Facebook stories aren't going anywhere. Like everything they're trying in terms of vertical isn't working because that's just not how people use that platform. So they'll probably get more traction in this because it's so easy now to do that cross-platform share. But they're just not TikTok. And I think we talked a little bit about this last week. Like, you don't have to be all things to all people. Like, just stop it. Just vertical short form content doesn't work everywhere. And like, I think I was, telling you guys about like my loathe of shorts on YouTube. And it's just like, you don't have to be doing this. You're already a huge giant. You're superior at what you do. Do more of that, so it's just kind of infuriating that everybody wants to be this thing that is like, but will TikTok be around forever? No, none of this stuff will. So it's like, why are you trying to chase that? Innovate where you're at, I don't think that answered your question at all. I'm going on a tangent. But...
That's quite all right. And there's a lot of feelings about this kind of stuff, as we've discussed in the past. All platforms trying to be all things to all people. I have to confess that I've been deliberately avoiding a lot of short form video content, and most of what I see is what Will tends to send me on my direct message on Instagram.
Sorry.
You're my personal curator. It's great. Like, you do the work for me. It's like, okay, I'll see someone with a cat or a DJ or a cat DJ, whatever. It's all good. Gray, what's your relationship with short form video content, and where, if you consume any of it, where do you prefer to consume it?
Mostly on YouTube. YouTube's system is actually terrible because it will just play the video over and over in a loop. And if you ever are doing something and I kind of get into the flicking through. Oh, that's interesting. When they're teaching you new ways to use tools, and there's some like bite-sized bits of philosophy that come out. And then, you see the video about the guy who used to be a loss prevention person and his petty way of dealing with shoplifters. And you're like, there's really no consistency to this. And it can't be from my viewing habits, because some of this stuff is just like, what? And you can actually just go into shorts, and that will actually progress normally. But if you click on the shorts on the page, it for some reason just gets into this weird loop where this plays the same one over and over until you fast forward to the next one, which is just a terrible interface, and I hate it and I want it to die. I have actually found myself getting caught the odd time that I get into Facebook and I see a video there that one of my friends has posted, and then suddenly it's doing the real, and I'm like, which app am I in again? Oh, I have to go. And we'll like log out on the spot. There is some good content out there, right? There are some folks out there who have figured out how to really clip the vowels out of sentences and get to the point way faster. I'm watching a lot of these, I think, AI generated videos that are reviewing camping things and stuff like that. And the trite, contrived way that AI writes is terrible. So anything that will get me out of that is better. So I can see the value in shorts there. It's just shut the machines up sooner. But really, it's such a mixed bag. Like, more so than longer form video. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm curating my own longer form experience, where with shorts I don't have the time.
Yep.
But I won't say it's a bad expression of human creativity. It's just not the one I'm hoping we pursue.
In other meta news, a few weeks ago, we didn't get a chance to really dig into the issue here on Momentous Live, but in a call, a company-wide call, Mark Zuckerberg claimed that Apple and Meta are in a deep philosophical competition, and it was with respect to the future of the metaverse. Whereas he's claiming that Facebook is wanting to do things in a very open and transparent way, and whatever Apple's got planned, it's going to be yet another walled garden. We're not going to get too much into that issue today, but I just wanted to use that as a jumping off point for the the whole idea of philosophy, company philosophies and principles, and how they may change over time or evolve to fit a given situation. Because one of the other news stories that has emerged in the last few days has to do with one of the executives at Apple who reports to Eddie Q, who's essentially in charge of services at Apple. He reports directly to CEO Tim Cook, and one of the key drivers for of Apple's services business in the next few years is going to be the increase of advertising revenue. And of course, this is a lot of which Mark Zuckerberg has been railing against in the last year or so, since Apple clamped down on cross-app tracking. They have this thing called ATT. The letters, the abbreviation escapes me at the moment, but it really
App tracking transparency.
App tracking transparency, exactly. So they insisted that apps had to ask for your permission to track you across other apps, websites, and the like, and that really makes ad targeting a lot trickier. Well, now the skeptics are coming out and saying, well, Apple wants to do more and more of this advertising. Are they just simply trying to lock out competitors as they continue to resurrect something that they had in the past called iAds? And now they're getting back into it. And now they're making it very difficult for the competitors, but they've got all this first party customer information. So now they can use that to target their own customers. And so we've seen promoted listings in the app stores, for example, on iOS. But now we're also starting to see ads in places like the Stocks app, and just for unrelated products, or like, you want to get a mortgage, that's showing up in the Apple News app. So, Will, I want to start with you on this. How does it make, in what kind of way does it rub you? Let's put it that way, to be super awkward. When you've paid good premium the Apple tax for your iPhone, your iPad, your Mac, sometimes more than the comparable Windows or Android device for, similar comparable functionality, the whole Apple ecosystem. But now they're going to throw ads in your face. What are your feelings about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious thing is I don't love it. I mean, I get it. There's a revenue stream here. But I think ultimately, like a lot of these things, where you're jeopardizing the experience. You can look at numbers, and numbers tell a story, but they don't tell the whole story. And it's at the end of the day, are you undermining your brand? So, as a company, I think it's probably the wrong play long term. In the short term, they're probably going to make gazillions of dollars. But what is the damage that it does to this kind of reputation or people's experience? I'm a big guy on experience, partly on what I do for a living, and I think it's always wiser to choose experience over numbers, because that's what helps brands, websites really become powerful, is the experience. And that's some of what Apple was built on. And I know they've had advertising in the past, but I think, it also depends. We shouldn't get too far ahead here. It depends on what it actually ends up being. But I think in general that they should really tread lightly in this space.
Deja, being someone who straddles the Apple and Google ecosystems, especially as you get more and more demo devices from Google, and there's a certain type of Apple user, and I'm probably guilty of this to a certain extent, where you'd ask people like, well, why, if people say, well, why do you use an Apple device? And I would say, well, why would you want to use a device with an operating system made by an advertising company? Well, joke's on us. Is Apple turning into an advertising company now? So Tasha, is this like, are you kind of like sitting back and going, so, I told you guys one way or the other, Apple's not that better than Google in the long run here. So it's money talks and so on. What does this do to your impression of Apple as a corporate player here, and balancing that with, as Will mentions, the need for revenue growth and but also user experience?
I just think at the base of it, like you just hit on with user experience, we are so inundated all the time with ads. Like sometimes I just feel like, like half the time I don't even know what I'm scrolling through on any given app or wherever I am. You know what I mean? Because it's like, is this someone I follow? Oh no, it's an ad. Like, and it's just this dulled experience to begin with.
Instagram is a key villain there, I would have to say. Yeah.
Big time. Big time. And it's like, it really takes away from, what Apple has done and what they do is, yes, they build really good product, but they excel at, user experience and having intuitive haptics, if you will. And I just feel like this is something that's really going to take away from that user experience on the device. And, I get it. They need to make money. But to me, it's like, do these ads work for you guys anyway? Like all these ads we're seeing all the time on our phones. Like, have we ever been like, I must stop what I'm doing? And like I think I can count on one hand when I've been in an app and gone, oh, that's a cute shirt. Or like something's come up and I'm, But like, honestly, I've never purchased anything from an ad. I've never, very rare that I even click through. So it's just bizarre.
One other example, I totally agree with everything Tasha said. Just bringing it to website stuff for a sec, just to give another reference about user experience. So there's a big argument, like in the web design community, about those pop-up ads. Like when you come into a website and they pop up, and there are people who believe in it will tell you, but Will, you don't understand. The numbers don't lie. They get so many clicks. Yes, because you're forcing people to. And what's the user experience?
The X.
They don't want it. Of course they have to click on something, and maybe they click on what you want them to by accident or because you've confused them. But it's not a good user experience. A lot of people who go through those are peed off at the website. So, I mean, this is where numbers don't always tell what the big story is, which is give the people what they want and don't pee them off. You're almost violating a little bit of the contract of which people bought into, right? Like, I'm using this product, I want a good experience. And if you're chucking this up for your own benefit, you're negating that a bit. You're damaging that relationship. So I just see it as like, of course, if you're looking at, to quote Obi-Wan, from a certain point of view, yes, pop-up ads work. They're great, but what does your audience actually feel about that?
Famous Obi-Wan Kenobi quote right there. Pop-up ads work.
Hello there.
So there, one could argue that there's a difference between Apple promoting its own services like Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade, iCloud Plus, and the like, versus third-party ads that are, targeted to Apple users on these expensive devices, where Apple has the privilege of accessing this information, this data on its users, and they claim that, well, it's still privacy protective because they're not sharing any of that data with third parties. Gray, to wrap up this story, are you buying it?
Yeah, I am.
And B, if you, even if you are buying it, if you could talk to Tim Cook and Eddie Q right now about going down this advertising route, given what we've come to expect of Apple so far, what would be your advice for them?
I think they've already taken the advice, and that is Apple's services right now currently have a pay gate in front of most of them. Spotify famously has their ad-supported platform. Looking at Apple News, looking at Apple Arcade, and all of these services, Apple TV, that they want people to use, but perhaps it might be challenging for people to get into these services without actually sampling them first. It makes a whole lot of sense to have an ad-supported network. And Apple didn't ever say that they weren't going to have ads. They said quite clearly, we have an ad network. What we are going to do is we're going to promise you a few things. And one of those is that we are going to not share your data with anyone else. That's what app tracking transparency is all about. They're leveling the playing field that everyone else has to play on the same playing field that they do. If you want to gather your own data, gather your own data. That's what Apple's doing. I like ads. I work in marketing. Ads work on me.
You're part of the problem.
The truth comes out.
So, and this is the thing. I'm part of the problem. What an interesting way of saying people make things and they want other people to enjoy these things. And so we have a system where we exchange currency for goods and services. And it's vilified by everybody from Adweek to Adbusters right on down to us. It's like, no, but I like stuff and I like doing things. And so I will exchange my currency for, these goods and services, but I want to know the things that I think I would like. And, in the past, the way that Google has followed me around, and a few others have followed me around, it's felt creepy because the retargeting was designed to break down any sort of rational thought that I had towards something until I was a pile of mush just handing over my credit card. I think this is actually where Apple is probably going to do it differently. And that's what I've seen from their ads so far. They don't seem to be invasive. They don't seem to be retargeting me. And if they are, they're doing it in a way that doesn't feel like they're just lurking around the corner. So looking at this, you can call me an Apple apologist. I'm not apologizing for them. I think this is what they're doing. I don't think there's a problem with it. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem with it, if the folks out there have a problem with it, if you don't like buying things, revolution is probably the best way to do it.
Well, as someone that was an early user of a VCR as a proto PVR and recording virtually everything I watched, time shifting it and fast forwarding through advertising, I prefer pull rather than push when it comes to advertising. I am this close to, I think, Gray, you subscribe to YouTube Premium, don't you, to avoid YouTube? Yeah. And I'm this close to doing it because I'm so sick of freaking YouTube ads.
My family plan.
Yeah, that's quite all right. Thank you. And so with this whole situation here, I kind of feel like Apple is, again, like to what Will was saying, breaking the contract a little bit. If I would look at it a little bit differently if they said, hey, you know what, you'll get a discount on this phone, kind of like what Amazon does with the Kindle. Hey, you want to save $30? You're going to have an ad on the lock screen of your device. But no, this is like premium devices that people are paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for. And now Apple's deciding to push ads into our faces uninvited. I'm okay with the first party stuff because, they, like you said, they want to get the word out about Apple TV Plus and some of their other services, which they're working hard to make good experiences for people. I don't want to see ads for mortgages. I don't want to see ads for jewelry, any of that crap. If you're going to put, if you want to show that to some people, make it so the device is cheaper, a service is cheaper, or what have you. Just like Hulu does, just like Disney Plus is thinking of doing, just like Netflix is thinking of doing. You offer people some of discount to push ads in their faces. But when people are paying premium Apple tax dollars, I think it's a little bit of a slap in the face, personally. Not that I have any opinions on this, but
I do like being slapped in the face, though. So,
so
maybe one more time.
Exactly. So maybe it's time for us to run to the warm embrace of the Google ecosystem, as represented by their flag bearer Samsung, who sells the lion's share of Android devices out there. We won't spend too much time. Just a quick overview of the Samsung Unpacked 2022 event that happened late last week. It's been covered to death in the media. I just heard an animal. What was that?
What, you've never thrown up in your trash can before?
Oh,
Grace throwing up.
I didn't see you, and I thought, What's going on? I thought it was solo or something. Anyhow, so some of the very quickly we saw a Galaxy Z Flip 4, which is an update to one of their foldables, the kind of portrait style foldable. We saw Galaxy Z Fold, which is more of the foldable that goes the other way, almost like a wallet style. The Galaxy 5 smartwatches, which apparently are featuring larger batteries, and Galaxy Buds 2 Pro, which apparently more expensive but new design and support hi-fi audio, which is nice to see. And we didn't really talk so much about phones in other phones in this event. So Z Flip 4 and the Z Fold 4, again, they're just iterating on these designs. We're still waiting to see what Microsoft has in store for their latest version of their troubled foldable device. But Samsung still, just like we all laughed at the Note, the phablet, Samsung's still, hacking away at this foldable thing. I've yet to see a Samsung foldable in the wild myself. But real quick round robin, starting with you, Tasia. If you had to choose one of these Samsung devices, which is the one here that's speaking to you?
You know how I feel about these quote unquote foldables. Call it a foldable all you want. I grew up in the flip phone era, okay, and I know one when I see one. It's like you could market it different, and you put it in a different packaging, it's the same thing, okay? Come up with something new. I don't want any of it.
Oh. Full stop. Okay, Will.
Full stop, okay?
I guess, but
you can't
quickly,
make me.
The only thing I would be vaguely interested in would be a foldable phone, just because my wife has wanted one for a while. So I don't personally want one, but I know she is. She loves flip phones, but she wants those old Nokias, like the Razors from like 20 years ago or whatever it was.
Oh, the Motorola Razr, yeah. And Motorola actually did a new version of that, which apparently was terrible. But,
and she looked into that one as well.
That was the phone.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
For so long.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
It was the phone.
The V720 was also quite popular around the same time and paid more commission.
Oh.
On the floor at Best Buy.
Future Shop.
Future Shop. Yeah, there we go. Gray, of these, despite the nauseating nature of the content, which of these admittedly iterative releases from Samsung as featured on Unpack has catches your eye more than the others?
Probably the Galaxy Buds, because I think if you plant them, do you get more buds out of it? If you could you actually could you nip Samsung in the bud then? I couldn't. Maybe the flip. I bought the Star Trek Fluvog boots. They showed up this week. They're great. So I'm working on the rest of my cosplay, and that could kind of like go with it.
Yeah, you could go Zahura.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Just dead ringer.
We won't make any comment about the how okay it is to have colored makeup. That's as far as we'll go.
It's and R.I.P. Michelle Nichols. We lost her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sad. All right, so let's. We're getting to our final lap here, a little belatedly, but we're almost done. We got some picks of the week, starting with Tasia. What is
I'm really going to bring the mood down, y'all.
There's a crisis. You said there was going to be a downer. Let's hear your downer.
Guys, I live in Arizona and we are in a water crisis, just as an FY to the eye, okay? And people are not sounding the alarm. We have been in a drought for like 23 years, and it's like people need to wake up. So what just happened today was kind of like a deadline from the federal government to give us like everybody's ordinances. So like all the states that rely on like the Colorado River, which Arizona is one. Anyway, the long story short is Arizona has to cut their water by 21%, probably more. And it's kind of a bunch of bull, because if you look at like what Arizona's water conservation efforts are, they're incredible. Like, oh my God, we could do episode on episode on just like what Arizona does for water conservation and everything they have in place and how much water we already have in storage, etc. But
Well,
like I think we only, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say they assigned water rights from this river that had
Yes.
more water than the river carries.
Yep. So that's
And-
exactly it. And
if you didn't use your water,
that.
you lost your water rights. It's a just insane system
Yes.
from the
Yeah.
19th century.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's really going back to part of the root of the problem. And that's a huge aspect of it, is when they did this, none of these states had the population that it was. They didn't foresee the amount of water usage that anyone would have. So they didn't allocate it properly to begin with. But anyhow, I believe our state, we use, I think like 36% of our water comes from, like Colorado River that feeds into Lake Mead.
Mhm.
But you have like a state like Nevada, that's 100% of their water resources come from the Colorado River. I've been screaming from the rooftops. I've lived here for 8 years. I made 2 rain barrels. People thought I was nuts. I've been screaming from the rooftops that we are going to run out of water, and nobody was listening. And now it's freaking happening. So anyway, my long rant is, by the way, California doesn't have to do anything. So it's us that get screwed. So, and I get it. California has a population like bigger than all of Canada, but come on, y'all can do something too.
And those
So,
almonds don't grow
but anyway,
themselves, you know.
very water intensive. I stopped drinking almond milk about a year ago because it is so
Terrible.
extremely water intensive.
Yep.
It takes so much water to produce a tiny, tiny little bit of almond milk. However, the point here being that where we're all going to feel it, like if we think inflation is bad in this state, and I'm sure Nevada is going to be the same, maybe even parts of Colorado, like depending on what they're getting told, is like agriculture is what's going to happen. So like we're still going to have water in our taps. Don't freak out. Which, by the way, if that's like a byline in your story, we should all be freaking out that you have to like tell people, don't worry, you'll still have tap water. Like this is a problem. So about 72% of our water usage goes to agriculture right now in this state. So it's like, where are we going to feel that now? It's going to cost farmers more because they have less land now that they can use water for. So they can sell less product. So they're going to up the price. Guess who's going to pay that now at the store? It's extremely frustrating because we have multiple states that have an abundance of water. In fact, get a lot of flooding all the time. They can't use all that water. We have to figure out a way that we can better distribute water to states that need it. And states need to do a better job of conserving the water, because we're all acting like these are infinite renewable resources. It's like, you keep draining that river dry, it gonna be dry. I don't know what to freaking tell you.
Yeah,
That's my rant.
It's a huge issue.
It has
'cause
very little to do with tech, but I'm
that's
annoyed.
that's quite
And
all
I'm
right.
freaking out. Like, it's like, why is nobody else freaking out? This is a crisis. Anyway,
I'm always freaking out about everything. So it's like, that's my secret cap. I'm always angry. That's
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Mine is I always worry.
Yes.
So, I recently learned that Las Vegas literally recycles 100% of its water. So they treat everything and they pump it back up to the dam at Lake Mead, which is so. That was a city that was built in the middle of the desert. So yeah, you got to kind of take some responsibility there. So I think there's a lot to be learned from their approach, and there's going to be, if other cities, large cities, could take follow that lead. It's going to take a lot of investment to make that happen. There could even be basic things at an individual household level, like capturing or separating gray water from black water, for example. So whether it's rain barrels or stuff from your showers and kitchen sink and other sinks and whatnot, where some of that water could actually be reused for gardening purposes and whatnot. People doing things like removing lawns, ornamental lawns, which are a tremendous consumer of water, and figure out, because the more you can like tighten up the demand a little, and it puts a bit of an ease on the supply. So I think it's one of those things where all these states that share the Colorado River are going to really need to amp up their efforts to share their best practices, both at a infrastructure level and on a education level for all of those who are using that resource on a day-to-day level. But part of the trouble with as humans, we don't like to feel like we're in, especially in the West, feel like we're being deprived. We don't like to feel like things are being rationed.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing how what human nature is like, especially, and what we've become accustomed to with our way of life, which is there's a lot of consumption. We consume a lot more than folks in most of the rest of the world. How, and it's hard to get people to change their behaviors. Okay, so bearing that in mind, what can we do to mitigate the impacts of those behaviors and nudge people towards things that they can do to help? Whether it's things like recycling that has been done successfully in some communities, and we can talk about the pros and cons of recycling, of course. But water capture, reuse, and all that it is super, because like once you let it go, to the ocean, until such point as you're going to I'll start green lighting small scale nuclear reactors to do reverse osmosis to convert seawater into to potable drinking water, which is probably not going to happen because that would be California's job, being on the ocean there. And people are still averse to nuclear. And until such point as, fusion comes along. Anyway, it's a big issue. So that's your pick of the week. You're going to run out of water, and you're going to have to come back to us in Vancouver because we got lots of water.
I'm going to have to come back to where it rains.
Exactly. We literally live in a rainforest, except for when it's on fire.
Can you guys ship some water, please? Because we're going to need it.
Well, Will, your pick of the week is a little less dire, a little more whimsical. What do you got for us?
Yeah, hard to transition from that one.
I'm not even going to try.
It's hard to transition from Teja on a good day. So
thank you.
I may have mentioned this before. I am a huge fan of the bots of battle. I know, Teja, you have your guilty pleasures when it comes to Real Housewives and selling Los Angeles and things of that nature. I am a big fan of BattleBots. Something about robots destroying each other and the engineering behind that is somehow very satisfying. I know that in the future, when our robot overlords take over, they will not look kindly on my viewing habits. But I greatly enjoy BattleBots. This is the new season where it's a bunch of champions coming together and sort of side tournaments to decide a couple other seeds. I'm really enjoying this season, as I enjoy all BattleBots. I do fast forward past the intros because they're super annoying. But otherwise, I really enjoy BattleBots.
What is it that you enjoy most about BattleBots?
I like the fights. I like the strategy. I like, there's weight limits and there's different weapons and engineering and materials, and something about it just scratches an itch. Maybe it's a video game thing. I don't know what it is, but teams of people who are creating these robots and coming up with different strategies and approaches and trying to defeat the other opponent. I mean, I'm a big sports fan as well, so this is a little bit of engineering meets video games meets technology meets sports. So for me, I find it super fascinating. I occasionally watch boxing or MMA on television, not as much as I used to, but much more of a soccer, hockey, basketball fan myself. But it kind of is a colliding of a bunch of my interests. So I find this somehow vaguely fascinating.
Good stuff. I noticed there was some fire in there too. We got some flamethrowers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And speaking of fire, Gray's pick
is
it's burning. Why don't you tell us about your pick of the week, Gray?
So this actually ties in beautifully to both the previous picks. I'm going to Burning Man. And so this is kind of my project for the week as well. But the 10 Principles of Burning Man actually tie into this perfectly. Leave no trace is one of the things that we ascribe to. And so going into the Nevada desert, we're carrying all of our water in, but we're also carrying all of our gray water out with us, either through evap ponds and letting it evaporate, or actually carting it out. I had a meeting with my camp earlier this week. The cool thing as well is that there is tons of really neat, awesome art there. I'm just in the process of modifying my mountain bike so that it breathes fire. at LEDs, same diff. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. The 10 principles are great though, because these, you know, things that we have here, starting with radical inclusion, gifting, decommodification. There's nothing to buy at Burning Man outside of ice. But there's no corporate branding. If you've got branding on your stuff, people are usually expecting you to cover it up. Radical self-reliance. You got to show up with all of your things to survive in the desert for a week. Radical self-expression, communal effort, civic responsibility. All of these things tie into how we relate and how we express ourselves to each other. And then we've got participation and immediacy, which is like take part and put your phone down. So looking at stuff like this, we're talking about a water crisis wherein responsibility had been abdicated by people for over 100 years in how they were approaching those water rights. And it's disappointing. There are things here in how I've lived my life in the last 5 years that have really changed the way that I see the world. And so, I think it ties in there. And then we also have robots that try to kill each other. So
there you go.
At Burning Man, you've got killer robots?
Oh yeah. Don't you?
My cat and my dog are the only robots that I possess.
There's 70,000 people that are showing up in the desert, and we're building a city, which we will deconstruct in a week. And there's a lot of art. I think there were only 10,000 main sales tickets, which means everybody else is running a camp, creating art, bringing in experience. There is a 49-page food guide of people who are offering midnight poutine or miso soup or hot chocolate or cocktails or whatever else it is, and it's all gifted. That's pretty neat.
Good stuff.
That's cool.
My pick of the week is a little different. Gray, you mentioned shifting perspectives. Well, I saw a movie recently that was in the theaters last year, directed by Ridley Scott. Not a perfect movie, but interesting in some respects. It's called The Last Duel, starring Adam Driver, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and I am terrible because the actress's name is escaping me. She's not someone that I was very familiar with. Maybe someone could bail me out here. Hang on. Castmate, Jodie Comer. And it kind of, it almost feels like a bit of a belated Me Too tale in a sense. It tells the story of a sexual assault in medieval times as told from three different perspectives. One of the husband of the victim is played by Matt Damon. One perspective is that of the alleged assaulter as played by Adam Driver. And then the perspective of the victim herself as played by Jodie Comer. And I think it's skillfully done in the nuances between in the portrayals of from the various perspectives there. And you can understand how people kind of convince themselves that they're perfectly in the right. From whatever issue or situation. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie, but in a lot of ways, it's quite well done. It's beautifully shot. It's very good job of world building and set in the Middle Ages, and all the trappings of that. The relationship with the local. Count, as played by Ben Affleck, the king, and this is set in France. The church has their role too, and not particularly helpful in this situation here. And this husband takes things all the way up to the king to make the case, saying that his wife had been assaulted. And I just think it's thought provoking. And it's not a real feel good movie, but. I think it got overlooked at the Oscars, and compared to so much other stuff that gets nominated, I think that may have been a bit of an oversight. But and the acting was quite well done. Ben Affleck's role was smaller, but he was obviously loving. He was a little bit. It was kind of a bit of a flamboyant character, a bit of a libertine as the local count, and on more than one occasion, he was just insisting that Adam Driver take his pants off and join in the fun with him and all the others who joined him in his quarters. It was there was these moments of levity in this very serious and somewhat unnerving story. But that's my pick of the week. So There we go. So now,
A medieval husband that stands up for his wife.
There you go. Honor. Well, honor culture is a thing, right? So, projects. So, Gray, you mentioned that your pick of the week was also your project. If you have anything else to add there, you're good?
I'm going to have a great time. I'm probably not going to be able to chat with you guys for the next 3 weeks, but we have Starlink down there, so maybe. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But Will, what's your, so you've got some more beats again. You're a machine.
Well, this is a weird one.
Okay.
It's a bit of a strange project. So this is actually, I did a loop for somebody else's project.
Mm-hmm.
They reached out to me and a few other people, and he's like, I have an idea. I'm a real big fan of Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. I want to do a looper that remixes or takes audio cues from Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Now, I love Tokyo Drift, but it is probably the least successful and least known of the Fast and Furious movies. They tried to take a whole switch in the genre. They thought it was all about the cars, not about the actors.
And we know it's actually all about
Vin Diesel.
Family.
Oh, it is about family. So I did a loop on this one from the Teriyaki Boys. Honestly, I have this song stuck in my head constantly. I'll just be walking around and go, Tokyo, because that's like the sample that I use over and over again. And my wife's like, why do you keep saying Tokyo? So check it out. It's definitely a bit of a different one. I can't say it's my best loop effort, but it's always a good challenge to take on a project where you're outside your comfort zone.
Stretch a little bit. Good stuff. Yeah. Tokyo. Tasia, you've got your streak is alive. You got another video for us this week. What's it about?
Does she ever? This one was Google Keep for mobile. So I basically am just laying out like what I think are some of the best Google Keep tips for mobile.
What is Google Keep for those maybe not familiar with it?
Oh, it's like a little note-taking app that's in the Google ecosystem, of course. But it's I use it, but I also use notes, so I'm kind of a mishmash. So it's like, but it's good. So there's a lot of things I like about it, like being part of the Google ecosystem, because like if I need to set a reminder, it'll automatically go to like my GCal, so stuff like that's kind of cool. But I'm not going to give away all the sauce. You're going to have to watch the video, which you can find at youtube.com/TajaCustodian.
Nice. Now, Google Keep, it works like I'm assuming through your web browser on your Android device and your iOS device?
Correct.
Excellent.
And all of these, every single tip on this, except I think like the very last one, work across devices. So whether you're iOS or Android. And like the last tip is something that like, depending on your settings on your iOS, it kind of would do the same thing anyway, without like giving it all away. But so yeah, it works across.
They are rolling out Google Keep for John Deere tractors quite soon.
Nice. I want someone to mod Doom so where you can play as Larry and/or Sergey and try to take down Apple. Or you can switch over to Mark Zuckerberg if you want.
Ooh.
And you could shoot Apple ads on there. Whatever. We've gone, I don't know how we ended up going so long. I cut down the story so much, but it was a pleasure to be back home after being on the road last week. Gray, we're going to miss you the next few weeks, but we'll hold down the fort. Maybe we'll have some special guests. We'll see. You can find out more about Momentous, momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous.tv, twitter.com/momentous.tv, instagram.com/momentous.tv, and on YouTube, search for my name and look for the Momentous playlist there. And be sure to like, subscribe, smash all the bells and the buttons. Don't hurt any animals in the process. Tasia, Gray, Will, thank you as always. And thank you to everyone out there. We hope your week is truly momentous.